Good morning, Gen Rinpoche Tashidale. And good morning, Dr. Tenzin Bhuchung. Thank you so much for translating for us this week and next week. And welcome to all the online participants. We're happy you can join us this morning. The link for the prayers is in the chat box, and we'll begin with some motivation prayers.
To the teacher endowed, transcendent destroyer, one thus gone, for destroyer, completely and fully awakened, one, perfect in knowledge and good conduct, one gone to bliss, nor the world supreme guide of beings to be tamed. Teacher of gods and humans, to you, the Buddha endowed, transcendent destroyer, glorious conqueror, Shakyamuni, I prostrate, make offerings and go for refuge. When, O supreme among humans, you are born on this earth, you pay 7 strides and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise, then I bow. With pure bodies, form supremely fine, wisdom motion like a golden mountain. Fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best supreme guide, to you I bow. With the supreme signs, face like the spotless moon, color like gold, to you I bow. You are immaculate, the 3 worlds are not, incomparable, wise one, to you I bow. Great, compassionate, protector, all-knowing teacher, field of merit and good qualities, vast as an ocean, to the Tathagata I bow. Through purity, freeing from attachment, through virtue, freeing from the lower realms. Unique, supreme, ultimate reality, to the Dharma that is peace I bow. Having freed themselves, showing the path to freedom too, well established in the trainings. The holy field endowed with good qualities, to the Sangha I bow. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind completely, this is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, mirage, a flame in a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, a bubble. A dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud, see conditioned things as such. Through this merit may sentient beings attain the state of all seeing, subdue the full faults, and be delivered from the ocean of cyclic existence perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. This ground anointed with perfume, flowers strewed Mount Meru, 4 lands, sun and moon. Imagined as a Buddha land and offered to you, may all beings enjoy this pure land. Venerable holy gurus, in the space of your truth body, from billowing clouds of your wisdom and love, let fall the rain of the profound and extensive Dharma, in whatever form is suitable for subduing sentient beings. Idam gururana mandalakam niryatayami. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I have awakened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Oh yeah, that is. Oh yeah, yeah. No, we surely Junal Sunguda. Oh gosh. Me Tula ten and it to me chu chilleters. 27年个梦不都是你马老送的，我还是当的 top 的米绿的送过来。 대화 계단 줘봐 주 상경이 산재기 땜바다 제네 로 진짜 밀리 개발시한테 송거라 아니 동해지 추래 저지기 주다부래 송거라 디페시체나 로 미 둘라 때네니스 미 류테 동해레 저지기 주단 라완데 송거라 미 둘라 때네니스 동해 추체레 저스 동해기 추 니해송기 동해기 추래 저도부래 로 아니 고에 동해 라다 밀어서봐 레도 녀무베 샤완도 줄네 기치치고베 동해 teleyang tewa chitu yora tele tarbasyura tanda 동해를 제제절에 기부충을 대신에 내성의 동해를 들어오라 띵아주 땅말이야 쉬쉬사라 소수지 마치 소설라버마도 저지 탑디카레스나 미기 주방야다 로 디 개와치 두게 되죠 디갈이야 아니 땅마데 딘도서 가서라 처음에 동화다 시야라 근데 숨지게 없지 디갈이야 디가서라 귀신이다 쇼쇼셔럽 숨겹지 주주셔도 안 되겠어 남경아저 미겨 주날 뜻이 시요라 한 번도 주지 주들라 미 주공 주dim시 뭐 디가서야 디도스 깨르다네 주주송도 어디래 동네 줄래 주지기 주된 자와데 밀리디기 디페시잖아 아니 주날 도요래 기와 전망에 손을 끼게 이제 요마로 대타셔주리고 저는 저 동민의 사셔배 미교에 레토스를 샤바체 세딜이야 아니 주주도 먼저 주주도 도스리야 뒤에 삼을 당한 되유나 지금 아무나 뒤삼을 고르게 아니 계속 인간의 지나 라다 밀리게 마동에서 지금 말와 제가 공문에 동해지 주응에서기 동해기 초울에 저지게 동문에 들릴 때도 식들이야 어디지 소나
So Gandhi Deva, in his Bodhisattva's way of life, mentions, writes that our human body is like a boat that ferries us across the river of suffering or ocean of suffering, and this particular boat is extremely difficult to find, and since this boat is extremely difficult to find, one should not remain lazy and kind of sleeping at kind of inappropriate times and so forth. So the example is basically the human body, the boat that carries one across the ocean of suffering or river of suffering. But he basically points to the fundamental preciousness of human birth, that once we have attained this bird-like precious human birth, then we are given the opportunity or the proper vehicle to cross the ocean of suffering. And the suffering here primarily refers to the three types of suffering, beginning with the suffering of lower realms. And so in order to gain freedom from rebirth in lower realms, one has to engage in 10 wholesome actions or virtuous actions, that is refraining from the 10 non-virtuous actions. And in this particular text, Nagarjuna actually adds a couple of more, including not drinking alcoholic drinks and so forth, totaling 16 wholesome actions that we must observe in order to take rebirth in higher realms. So therefore, this particular method, he taught it very clearly, right? Now it's basically up to us. On a day-to-day basis, if we refrain from 10 wholesome, 10 negative actions, or 16, or engage in the observance of the 16 wholesome actions, And that, you know, on a day-to-day basis, we think about these like non-virtuous states of mind, non-virtuous like actions, and then make a kind of intentional decision to refrain from doing them, engaging in them on a day-to-day basis. And also at the same time, generate sort of regret over negative actions accumulated from many countless lifetimes and engage in purification practices, then there is no doubt that, you know, this kind of practice will deliver us from the suffering of lower realms, because due to a lifetime of practice, at the end of when the time of our death nears, during the dying process, due to the force of our lifetime of spiritual practice or dharmic practice pertaining to refraining from the 10 non-virtuous actions, these like wholesome states will necessarily arise. And when that happens, it is definitely we can be confident that we are going to actually take rebirth in higher realms. And then the second suffering is, of course, suffering from all forms of rebirth within samsara, even including those of the higher births, because they are fundamentally propelled by karma and applicable emotions, and therefore in the nature of suffering.
Oh yeah. That's it. Me chula tenene tunge chuchile. Ta chu niba tuede tirwangazo. Koye tungele tendo tuede. Tanda nge sungu tungele tuede tapde. Kanda karsara. Ngunde chuchuti. Lidindi pechu chene diwara. Oh, ta tene ngele tuye karsora. Ngundu lada mi koba teya tunge jirang shinche batone. To kibu dringi kapsu. Lada mi kewa teya ko sosolo rao yo mara keka nachila sobe tunge mambu yora. Tene ko tempo ke yo mara yang yasong ma tung sigira. O te indi lada mi la soba kawai na leda nyumumbe shiwa do gyurne. Pumbun dolen che ko ba tele tarwa chi che ko to sam. Rawa. O te che ko yu na kuwe tunge le tawar che ko yu na. Ane tanda nga zo ngele ki kyu di she yo ra. Ngundu kyu she sa na ngele kyu ta tongba nye tonggo re. Midawa konggo re. Ane chakwa chungru tanggo re. Kondru chungru tanggo re. Chakdangi wangi ane kosungi chawa che de chungru tanggo re se. O ti maa che ne nyamu pangi de sungu dowa. O ti susu ludin de tingne. Dame ba dame da kwa le soba. Aro ane chakwa shenja nga ye samsa shenja chungru tang. Ti shenja chungru che ne kondru de rangshingi chungru ra. Chakwa ki wangi kondru ki wara. O ti indi ko o te su paa chumbayi na. Ti maa nyungru tang che dame ba kumne. Chakdang la soba nyamu kanga da maa chungru tang bayi na. Ane ti ngele kwa le kema kuwa chawi wara. Dame ba kumne dame ba ngui sumdu seba tona. Tangzingi shangwa dun rubyo mara. Tangzingi shangwa dun maa chi na. Kondru chakwe shangwa dun rubu mara. Tene kondru shangwa dun rubu mara. Ti indi ko sadam mila soba. Leda nyamu be wangi kawa rawa me ba. Pumbun dolin che kuwa tile tarwa che kuwa. Dungi chu tile chwe kuwa yu na. O ting tongpa nila soba, dame ba la soba. Chakdang to su chungru tangu dowa. Ti tabdi tanda nga zu shegi yora. Ya.
So then the first river of suffering is the river of lover rebirth, that of hungry ghosts, hell beings, and animals. And then once you gain freedom from this, the second river that we can cross by utilizing this human body is the river of conditioned existence within samsara. And that basically also includes even rebirths in higher realms like that of human beings and gods, since they are also propelled by karma and klesha, or karma and afflicted emotions. And so therefore there is no, we don't have any freedom in terms of our ability to abandon our aggregates from lifetime to lifetime. the 5 psychophysical aggregates are propelled by karma and after emotions, right? And so therefore, that itself is a form of extreme suffering. So in order to cross this river, the second river, the river of existence within samsara, a conditioned existence, then we have to engage in the practices pertaining to the personal middle scope, right? So the first practices of refraining from the 10 negative actions and so forth constitute basically teachings pertaining to the person of small scope. So then all the teachings that help us gain liberation or moksha from conditioned existence constitutes what we call as teachings pertaining to the person of small scope. And for this particular purpose, the practice involves, earlier the practice involved refraining from negative actions, right, and engaging in wholesome actions. Here now, the practice involves more subtle kind of a refraining, that is refraining from not just actions, but afflicted emotions, particularly those of desire, hatred, and ignorance, right? So therefore, as much as possible, we try to eliminate our desire, eliminate our aversion, craving and aversion. And fundamentally, they are propelled by a kind of ignorance of self-grasping. And so therefore, we engage in the practice of understanding and meditating on the wisdom of emptiness, the wisdom of selflessness, and so forth. And if you're able to actually realize the wisdom of emptiness, selflessness, then we be able to naturally be freed from all afflicted emotions that come from fundamental kind of dual force of craving and aversion propelled by ignorance, right? So therefore, this is what we're doing right now. In the section that we are on now is basically all the teachings that help us cross this second river, the river of rebirth within conditioned existence, or what we call as samsara.
Oh yeah. Oh, the Hindu culture. Me tula tenene to me chuchile trese. Oh, in the tura chiyunako. To send the pechu chegura, tangura, lago kujochi chegura. Tiende ko mili tudan draw to me chule trese. To send a shingi. Lead the top the yard de tea pechu chene. Roa make you a chupa than the talis or nashi. When they chudu la soba to vera. It under nearly tilia. Dame va come chakang la soba nyurta. Lunga yesum yukone, and chakang on the son the lesa and nyurtana. And it to sing tangiwara, to sing tan and it was your part lebura. Some me to let in it to make sure she let it. Tun the chin and yegos. Oh, data will be lit and the top and I said the cheat of what is in Yaka would it ask. Good to wear the shinton and cowboys. This also some lutana. Kiwa to wear and big one, the Karishu Chet or Hakura. So I go. Tundi chine nyego maomba na tinde nyeka bushidare ese. Kare senge son rabu chilu ma long sasuna. Nime ama duru doya nyenga yora. Ngoti indi tundi de chine nyego we mongba ase. Kukwa ase ta kukwa chene mate ese. Ta changbuche, chungbuche ta rengi milite. Sende chigwe tondali ya saya tunga chigwe tondali zo mochi buche. Tile lakwe tondaya tenjin de mochi tuku ure ese. Tile matumna. Ne maomba na ya tinte mili toka bude ya soda. Tundi chine nye kawe mongba tusu nye ma lo se. Tusin tobe kaptila nye lo che ma te se kanya tashi ma che che. O nye ya se ne, chungbu che ne. Ane tusin tang se. O tusin tang uyo na. Nye songe tungi le tuyo to bude. Koye tungi le tuyo che bude. O songe doa ya o deshi lam na.
So therefore, Shantadeva is basically urging us to use the boat to ferry ourselves across the river of suffering. So how do you really sort of ferry ourselves across the river by using this particular boat? It is by engaging in the practices described earlier, practices pertaining to the person of small scope, that is basically refraining from 10 non-virtuous actions and so forth. When you're doing that, that is how we are actually using or utilizing our boat of human body, right? That is what is meant by using it. So when we engage in studying and reflecting and meditating on the teachings on impermanence in order to achieve the wisdom of impermanent, not impermanence, emptiness or selflessness, then we are utilizing the boat that we have achieved. So Shantideva says, like, this particular boat is extremely difficult to attain, and that is because there are so many difficult causes and conditions that is involved in actually achieving a human birth, right? And it is therefore very difficult to give rise to all the causal factors to be able to achieve a human birth and then have access to teachings. And so therefore, since that is the case, once we actually fall from this particular precious human birth and say, let's like we take rebirth in lower realms, then it is extremely difficult to gain freedom from that, because you know the circle of negative karma propelling negative karma, that is sort of like continuous, so it's very difficult to break the chain. So therefore, since it is extremely difficult to find this boat, Nagarjuna is saying basically, "Oh fool," addressing us, "Oh fool, don't sleep, wake up, and use your precious human body, human boat, right?" Uh, that we should not only be concerned with uh, mundane concerns like just providing food, shelter, and so forth, which is of course important, but we shouldn't be limited to that. That we should actually use this particular opportunity to find a permanent kind of a kind of grounding that leads us to freedom.
Oh yeah. Oh, that is something that they should do. So to kasura to dance machine be shiraja medwa. To go actually when to be a church car needed to be a church car. That is so do my do so la medwa. So jena che medu wetin rege maro. Nam ju ke je shedu na nam mi ge chu de yong ma yo ta che chi chen nyur dan ta yora. Oh, chakwa shenja chung dan oh chen de chi bu to da le shi wo je che medu sam. Den du den ge re je na ne shi bu je sam dang go ra. De ne ge ma ro ko me je de bi ja ja ra. Chen de chi bu to da le me je chen bu de ne ga chen bu de chola da ne ma de ra. Den da chung ju ji don da le ya. Koran zo me se ge don da koran zo ju be so ri chi ra. Ja la koran don da koran zo ju se. Ti pe phang bu cha go ra. Ti de ko ka so ra. Oh, chendi chikbu tanda tuwe de te sambi chidanda chogure ko ina. Te sambi kecho chi che te tanda le chakdanga kondo shangwa miki wachu shechi saadena ne kyo chima pungdu ra. O te indi tinga ranzo che tuya yore. Kadu ina shencha chungru samza susuma samgi magi di chungru ra. Ane nga zu konzo se chakdanga se ro. Tanda chamzi tsawa dang ra. Shen le tsawa pangpa ta shen pangpa chuba ngi di inba su tu shana. O ti indi ko shen le ya tsawa ma chiwa chi pangpa chu ka du ina ya. O shangbu chang sha rup chi chi. Ni misi kia gu re sana misi di yang dakwa tsawa sigi dwa. Misi di yang dakwa chi kia re ne ko misi kia ko kar su re. Ngundu da ngai li kyu lin ro sha gira. Misi kia tang di lokwe tsawa chi chi kia re ina. Ko ne sonda kwa kwe gyu yangja saga yombe suru chanuro o di indu kar sura o di nal sumbu na shingi ro mili di dandan denpa chi che sam di che do ane ngondo topje ge che tang mili topje ge che ane ngomulu du ge umaranji tinga nal sumbu na shin toba che sampa che ane yana yando kumri chi ge yin sam di toba che ge yin sam o di che do ane che nyen ge yin sam che kunu se tam ne sembar shu se o dis.
So therefore, it is also not the case that it is extremely difficult to engage in the practice of those dharma or causal factors that gives us rebirth in higher birth, and also kind of that kind of lead us to the state of definitive good, which is basically the state of liberation. Because as it is clearly explained by Nagarjuna here, on a day-to-day basis, the practice basically involves, is right from the beginning, analyzing our mind and making a motivation that this particular day, I'm going to, watch my own thoughts and actions so that I'm going to not engage in the whole negative actions. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to engage in wholesome actions, right? That's one kind of set of practices that we can do. And as when we are mindful, when we're conscious, then as soon as we engage in some sort of unwholesome actions, then we immediately, confess, engage in confessional practices and so forth. And then that is what is basically meant by, engaging in actions that give us freedom from lower realms, teachings pertaining to the person of small scope, right? Something that we can do because the teachings have been clearly explained here. And then the second level of teaching pertaining to the person of middle scope that lead us to the state of liberation basically involves on a day-to-day basis, as much as possible, limiting our kind of gross like desire and gross like hatred, to see them as negative and to try to kind of, suppress them as much as possible, right, at the level of after emotions. And then like to engage in practices that fundamentally eliminate all forms of craving and aversion, which is basically teachings pertaining to wisdom of emptiness or wisdom of selflessness, right? So ultimately, all of these practices basically can be incorporated into the dual practice of refraining from harming other sentient beings and engaging in actions that positively benefit other sentient beings, right? And in this like dual practice, all of the practices that we just mentioned can be combined because, like all of these actions are fundamentally kind of there because it impacts other sentient beings. And so therefore, all this can be done when we actually see the momentary nature of our life, right? That we are not here permanently, that life is, short, and that is certain. And with this kind of training, then you see what is important, like engaging in like a lot of like fight that pertains only to this life will lose its significance, right? And then we'll be able to live what we called as engage in right livelihood, a kind of livelihood that kind of not only helps oneself, but also does not harm others, right? So therefore, our motivation of listening to this particular text, this particular teaching should be that, I'm going to listen to the teachings that Nagarjuna has explained here that give us rebirth in higher realms and give us kind of the attainment of liberation. And for that particular purpose, I am going to receive these teachings. So that let's motivate like that.
Oh yeah. 당연히 솔로가 십주 시주바디인바. 디 십주 시주바디래. 디 가르시에 그래서나 오늘 가서래. 근데 랑신지 주바든 타니도 저와다 랑신지 주바 마레스 디시에도 와 등쇼라니. 어디에 가서래. 네. 개와 교당 제 통회식도 와. 개와 교당 제 통회식도 가서 그래서나 동해 개와 되시거라. 당신이 교당 제 바데 얘네 엄마 보기 처음에 통계 여서 거라 신기 여서 죽투기 여서 거라. 개와 주단체 동에서 거기에 동네에서 봐도 상마대 그러와 아니 당진기 중앙 삼서 삼로치게 아니 나저 건조세 삼로게 아니 작다게 대왕게 미게레사 대왕게 아니 동네 중에 대간자 지지도 무슨 통제를 지라 내 준비세대 지지도 마부증 무슨 그 통계 있은 거라 긴잡으리도 그래서 그디나 나 삼삼을 숙쳐부시다 인터넷 진주스 드마스 상황도가 제 차도 강가 연구도 디왕게 니 멜케 주셔야 삼루탄에 가르쳐야 강가 연구하라 자고 디왕게 기회를 사고 이나야 그 라다 멜케 주루를 메게 와사다 내성리 주루하라 저 오마바데스 다tonda 오마바데 최탐제 때다 마메랑고네 메스도 최다와르에서 디겨 강가 주고라 마와다 주루가 참마게 kaake mesi kiran ta rangune ta mesi rangune ngayo mesi rangune su mesi tene kaya menge ri cheta wa longsha ase meba mawa re se telab gyara o nga chu tinde maru da se gyara tanda karasna uma badege tungela soba kyawa te tunge yena da tewa yena da kari na tirwa ta tanda tunge kewe gyudelya ngao nyambache ani chaltan ke tewange ani mikewele sagdwa tewange debu tunge che delay pheje ha ko de so tugu chen tugu nya de so ha ko dwa mangcha achi chaltan gonge le sa ne tunge chuwa khashe musum de tugu de che delya ta che dele ke ma do de ma bali yo gyara o che sungara 개와 교단지 통외에서 대체면 통고 세면 줍통고 신기 요소 르바 성르다니 매번 일은 대바에서 아주 우마바데 쉐 매번 마와 말에서 체다와 말에서 가야매 개왕아마매 치마매 개와매 대바매 간사매서 티스리오 말에서 교와라 매번 일은 대바에서 매번 마와는 대바데 매번 말에 예수 남게라 예수 거라 Tenzin Bhuchung 중앙 삼도 자체 중앙 기대이다 기대인 대부 대화 동에 개와도 kelengyoara 어쨌든 제다와마 예스 타지가요ara 되네 고바 주단 제통에 여반이 동안 개밀len식도 고바 주단 제바세 고대에서 가지고 엄마바게 동에게 교안진다 차단도스파 고바 예수 시에 예수라 고대인데시거라 당진다 차단을 소바 니모도도 고바 라르메 제스 좀 고통베 까통베게 고바 예수야 세바 예수 빵베 예수 데데 고바데 톱지게 주데라 람나 삼상 녀모쿠네 나게 간지데 나 라와 메바 또베 람제 데바데 가자 하고 예수라 나 라와 메바데 나 삼상 간지 고게 레사 녀모칸게 지게와라 사티바 각지게 고바데 톱지게 고베 젤주스기라 대단 고den스나도 고딱 버리시래 데리 교식마데 제외 교식이라 젤주스기도 교군에게 고바 코란샤나데 딱 버리되어라 저던다 녀몬 고바데 네 텔리아주 람제 템바 다메바 다긴 녀모 제사가 시간가 삼브라와데 야 차단kin 연구도 와세 다 차단도 매바 송게게 나 생아 라와데 매바 또게 애니 고 란지디 난지 세바 토지기 다 매바 또게 로디 난지 샤토고 유스고라 고바 주단 제통에서 람딩기 주단 제부터에서 세메 통하래 리베 툭툭이어라 통에서 매바 일은 대바 인세 어디 가서래 여바 일은 대바 여타마 말해서라 랑군의 여바 마어디 말은 아주 삼바나시 랑군의 여바 랑신기 여바 랑경고 여바 축뚝도 여바 딱수도 여바서 망보여라 나랑게 여 삼산도 왔다 고대부친 테레 나랑게 여 삼산 속보다 소아다 대주파 로가샤 대주 롱주 징게르 로가치 나치 여 삼기도 왔디라 나랑게 여 랑군의 여바서도 랑경고 여바서 랑신기 여바서 축뚝도 여바서 지체가 돈을 세줬던 디레샤세르지바 지금은 제외베서를 삼고도 어디인데 텐데요 말씀드데 여반이 장캡다 돈다 오마바데 딱세게 탕이다 제 의마와데 이래서 제다와 말에서 랑신기 여바마와데 말에 랑원에 똥바레데 똥바 말에서 자세 롱알레 좀 될어서 뭐 기득한 거 캐는 게 요스티셔도 어디지라나 뭐도 죄송하다 드려야.
So then verse number, we're going to start from verse number 46. Verse number 46. So first I'm going to just read this. Seeing that production has a cause, one transcends the notion of non-existence. Seeing that cessation has a cause, one does not accept the notion of existence. So therefore, this particular verse basically defines the Madhyamika view as one that is free from the two extremes, the extreme of existence and extreme of non-existence, and that therefore it is a kind of a philosophical position or wisdom that is able to uh, eliminate any notion of substantial, true, or intrinsic existence. Or in other words, the Madhyamika position of lack of any intrinsic existence pertaining to both personal and phenomenal world is basically a position that is actually free from the two extremes of existence and non-existence, or inherent existence and inherent non-existence. That is to say, it has to be qualified like that, right? And so what this basically verse comes in response to the position of non-Buddhist schools and also all the substantialist or realist Buddhist schools. That is all the schools below Sotanta Madhyamika, where they say that in the position of the Madhyamika view is basically one that is of nihilism. It leads to a nihilistic conclusion. So therefore, it is saying, in response to that, it is by saying that we are not nihilist because we say seeing that production has a cause, because we see that production or arising of suffering and so forth has causes and conditions. Uh, and so therefore we're not saying that there is no size, no production of suffering, because we see the production of suffering, the arising of suffering has causes and conditions. And so therefore you cannot actually blame us to be somebody who actually kind of cling to a nihilistic philosophical conclusion, because the causal mechanism of causes and conditions giving rise to a definite result is something that we see, something that we maintain. So seeing here is not only do we perceive it directly with our uh, uh, pramana or valid cognition, and we also see it or perceive it or realize it through inferential logic or inference as well, the two types of epistemological mechanisms, right? And so with respect to to a great degree, we are actually able to kind of conventionally perceive the causal mechanism. For example, we generate to us great sense of self-importance or ego, and that in turn give rise to either craving or aversion, fear, and so forth. And then that in turn kind of activate a particular action, verbal, physical, something like that. That in turn give rise to suffering, right? This is something that we can all perceive directly, in our own kind of, physiological, psychophysical mechanism. And some of these, causal mechanisms we may not see right here in this life, but they give rise to kind of result in previous lifetimes. So therefore, the Madhyamikas are saying that, actually we are not nihilistic because we actually can maintain that with our own cognition, with our own pramana, we can maintain that there is a causal mechanism, that production of suffering has causes and conditions, and we maintain that, right? Then the second is the so therefore then the second extreme is extreme of eternalism or existence or inherent existence, and that is basically with regard to the state of cessation, kokpa, right? State of cessation. And so then they say that, okay, but you maintain the state of cessation. Cessation itself is permanent, you maintain, and so therefore it amounts to basically clinging to eternalistic view. And to this, Nagarjuna is basically responding by saying that even cessation we see as we see or we perceive through inference and through direct perception as having causes and conditions. So therefore, seeing cessation has a cause, one does not accept it as a kind of a form of inherent existence. Again, here, the cessation here is basically cessation of afflicted emotions, craving and aversion, and all the associated negative afflicted emotions, cessation of also the root cause of all afflicted emotions, that is this self-grasping, right? Axing or self-grasping, and cessation of suffering in such a way that they do not arise again. The state of irreversible cessation of self-grasping, craving, aversion, and the resultant suffering, right? We maintain that as having causes and conditions. So kind of in a philosophical kind of gymnastic here, we say cessation itself is permanent, right? So therefore it is not produced by causes and conditions. But we the this we say this causal factors leading to the separation of all self-grasping and so on. And that leads to the state of cessation. So indirectly, cessation also has causes and conditions. And because we also maintain that, the noble path, the noble truth of path of cessation, we maintain that, we see that, we perceive that, we can infer that, right? Because of understanding the wisdom of emptiness and so forth, we also do not fall to the position of eternalism. And so basically, what the Madhyamikas are refuting is refuting true existence or objective existence from its own side, right? The terminology is independent existence, substantial existence, inherent existence from the side of the object of objective existence, right, and so forth. That even though the Madhyamikas maintain a causal mechanism where there are many causes conditions taking place, and including the conceptual imputation for phenomena to actually exist. But nonetheless, if we were to try to find that as having some sort of objective inherent existence on the object themselves, on the basis of designation themselves, then we will not find it.
Oh yeah. 당은 저 솔로가 10년대라 디 존재랑 신지 주가 가기도 와 주된 대부 가야 랑원에 주가 요 말레스 디가요라 딩나르기 바다 렌지 제스도 나르기 바세데 치다 고 주세된 대병알을 깨고라 남부산집에 되고라 대병엘이야 깨베 중어도 깨베 주 주딩엘이요 아니 디핀지 펠네 닌 대부디 깨고라 Jungel, Jebung, do you bet Jumato, Jebuda, Tunyam do you, but that she's you was at the Yomara Nambachina. Diana, Henji case, Tunde Tunyam Baket and Gayora. Took them all Shandagi. Country seriously, Judas and Jebu or the cigar. Jebu di Judas, you is Tangjamba to Jinako. Chisu negative Judan Jebu Yuri. That's who said, the Mas said, Chisu said, Mato. Judas Mary and Jebu Omars, Tunyam Regdoa. Chidan Cote. Narji Bada, Henji said, Henji do you ever day, Tunde Tunyam do you ever see her. What in the kind of Tamba Trube, Jebingare do you ever do, Rangune Trube Jebukia Yomare. Juda Tunyam do you ever Jugia, Rangune Trube Jebukia Yomare set and Dara. Tunda de Jutus and Jebu Yore said to the Rangune Trube Shendachunity, Yungu Sera. Which you didn't I came with a Korea term, which the Tinalochi men at Tambune men, so Toya Marisam Gora, Rangune Tangore, Rangune, Kurangune, so Toya Gora, still some dots, Rangune. Did you didn't a year go there, some young Buddhist and tell the Judas Mary and Jebukia Omarisiora. So Namba no, you said the Mambo just saw me. Tenzin Bhuchung any lower to Jebudia Toyang Geshikoramado. Queen and a year there was a Yashi Omara. What is Ora? Narji Badan, Henji, Jumis Ora, Jumis. Don't the Jumedos, this on the Rangune to be Juyomaris, Rangune to be the Yomaris to the Carina. Don't do say that Rangune to be. Oh, Tini, to the Yomaris meadows. Or did you lamna Tambuchigani Chilana?
So then verse number 47 refutes the inherent existence of both cause and effect. The refutation of inherent existence of causality, that is, for both cause and effect. So I'm going to read here first. A cause that occurs before its effect, that is, or simultaneously with it, is not really a cause. It's not really a cause at all, because such causes are not accepted normally. Okay. So one idea is basically that when there is an arising of an effect, that generally speaking, or conventionally speaking, when we talk about a result or an effect, the cause comes first, right? A previously existing cause gives rise to an effect, right? That's the kind of a general conventional understanding, right? But here, this is not what is meant here. This is kind of an analysis that pertains to the ultimate reality, right? And this is basically a negation of philosophers or philosophical schools that basically posit an inherent existence, whether it pertains to causes or whether it pertains to result, right, or effect. And that is of this kind of clinging to a notion of inherent existence. For example, Sankhya's, right? Sankhya's, they say that they think that cause and condition is not just something that is imputed on a process. Cause and condition must inherently exist. If you just like take away our concept, right? Take away our all conceptual interference, so to speak, and look at the object themselves, something in the object, we will find a cause and condition, right? And it's like inherently existing. So Sankhya's, they say that actually it must inherently exist. It is not just a conceptual imputation. And so therefore cause and conditions exist tenge or simultaneously, right? And the idea is that the effect is in its unmanifest form, simultaneously existing with the cause. And then it becomes, it kind of manifests later on. And if there is nothing during the causal kind of state, then there is nothing that will manifest at all, right? So this is kind of this kind of position comes to a kind of clinging to a real kind of feeling that something must truly exist from the side of the object themselves. So therefore, this kind of negation of that, right? Inherently existing prior cause will not give rise to an inherently existing effect. Simultaneously, an inherently or a simultaneously existing cause will not give rise to an effect.
Oh yeah. Tandere da yanda nidu na joang rabdu matrashi sedera. Da yanda nidu nis. Rangshinji drube drebu jewa desi wara. Rangshinji drube julen drebu jewa de. Da yanda le tene tanyebe seme drugu ma re sera. Rangshinji meba de. Da yanda le tene rangshinji meba de drug tugu ma do. Rangshinji yoba de. Da yanda le tene tanyebe sema ge drug tugu ma re se. Da. Yanda nidu nese tandamla cheba chingege, yanda bala cheba chingege, ene chema shure, tege ya tupi wa mares. Te tumna takdun chengen shorwa. Rangwine yo na kawa yo se tanda chi, rangwine nga sam, nga rang yo sam na, kawa yo sokpo derebe, sem derebe, sowa derebe, sokpo na yo sa jumilungi junga tuzo rebe, tele lao su chi, kokwe na zu dengen chi, yo rebe, se tende takche chi yo ra, te tandamla cheba chemarwa. Yana te yana te nye kura, do dire shasi chilin zu su sa juyo kura, te me do si che, tandamla chebe tsamala ya drag mare, tanyan chebe tsamala ya drag ba mare se, tanda tsame truga mare se, tsame yudu yo mare se, tandarawa, tuk tuk mudu se. Tata yanda nye do na, kiawa rabdu matra chiris, te dambe chule, te dambe drebu kiawa de, tanyan be tsamada, te dambe tsama kanga ya, kanga ya truga mare se.
And so the last two lines of this particular stanza, it says, a cause that occurs before its effect or simultaneously with it is not really a cause at all, or they do not exist in this way, because such causes are not conventionally or nominally accepted, nor are they accepted from the ultimate standpoint of view. So therefore, such in kind of a notion of an inherently existing cause giving rise to an inherently existing effect, or a kind of or simultaneously existing cause giving rise to an effect, inherently existing effect, right? If you try to analyze that even from a conventional point of view, through using kind of conventional inference or logic, we will not be able to accept such a position. Nor will we find such kind of a notion of cause and effect if we engage in finding such a causality from the point of view of ultimate analysis. So the ultimate analysis here is basically the kind of the cognition that engage or wisdom that engages in exploring what is ultimate realities. Right? For example, if we try to search for, what self is truly, if this self exists, then from an ultimate point of view, not just kind of nominally imputed on the aggregates, but if it does exist ultimately, then it should be found within the aggregates, right? There's no other way. So if then you say, okay, then where is that, right? Parts of the body, the self is uh, any kind of the feelings self, is consciousness the self, and so forth, right? If you try to engage in such kind of ultimate analysis, we will not find it. So that is basically what is meant by engage. Even when analyzed or explored from the ultimate point of view, we will not find such kind of causal mechanism.
Yeah. Tandi yanti ka sura. Uma to zu cheba di chungdwa. Karsi wala sana. junde rang shinji chuba kakpa yena su umaba kirang junde rang shinji chuba kakpa yena su ura ni ken deba samya kawa ni chuta ken samdiya kakpa rese chu me ken me se ku rese yona rang shinji yo ku re rang shinji chi me na ni zu sa yo ma ra zu sa me na ni me rese rag me na su ura tuba kana ken deba samya yo ma se de chuta ken samdiya me ba chag rese ura jigdenji chakpa dange gres kera uma badi jigdenji chakpa dange gdo jigden tanya kyu yore drebu yore tao dan shen da tesu tanya shore tesu wa meba chag resi gora ye desi na kyunde ne tinge gma resi gora uma badi jigden chakpa dange gma resi karesi na kyunde ne tanya do tensu tene shakpa sambre ma do ane rangu ne chuba yo ma resi tene shakpa sam 인지 랑게 뭐 두바 중세게 요 말레스 어디지 시에도 수저바 저도 텔렌시 겨도 어디지 랍잖아
The Shologa Shabjet Rogila.
용주래 간데 단데 담마들 초대르지래
So therefore, this particular verse number 47, the context here of the hypothetical debate here is that, lower philosophical Buddhist schools and non-Buddhist schools, they argue that if you maintain that causal mechanism, causality, or cause and effect does not inherently exist, then you also have to maintain that there is no such thing as the existence of causes and conditions giving rise to result. And because if you say that there is no inherent existence of cause and effect or causality, you're basically saying that there is nothing in the object, any kind of substantial existence or objective existence. And so therefore, what you're basically kind of accepting is a position where you do not accept any causes and conditions at all. And furthermore, you're basically going against the received convention of the world. And so therefore, this is in response to their kind of debate by saying that even though we do not maintain an inherently existing cause and effect, we still nonetheless maintain a causality where, depending on causes and conditions, in dependence to many causal factors, we actually conceptually infer the notion of causality. Many causal conditions giving rise to effect, and that in turn is basically inferred by, conceptually, mentally inferred by the mind, or imputed by the mind. Yeah.
근데 솔로가 시주 세계단 시구대 디셰도 아까서래 이대기 작보단 게 와도 바빠기도 와 된다 야 시세계다 시군이 되래도 시세계다 시군이 부되게 아니 작보단 게와 바빠기도 와 이제 작보단 게가 말해 시도 단 뒤에 빼는 대중 빼르시도 뒤에 빼는 대중 빼르시 준뒤에 빼는 안 되버디 중화래세 Tena rinpo yoza tongdong yonggu towa se. Tongdong yoza rinpo yawar bachi, ringdong rachi ne kutane. Tili ten di ringa re towa, tili ten di tunga re towa, tili ten di chenpo re towa, di chunga re towa, tili chigli teni chi shaya re mato. Tachi tu chenpo senge tili taali chenpo mewa chi yo mara. Tachi tu chunga se tili chunga mewa se chi, mewa chi ku tu rupi, chigli teni chi ju shagu towa se wara. Di pe na di ju pe rinpo yobe tongu shen se. Di karsi gore se na. Teni kausura. Rikpan di yobe na, tongme ma rikpan di yobe na, nipan duji ji le di chunga re se. nga samsa nga rangwa chi samlu yudu sa rwa ene o nga la tinda ba chi do nga de tru ku gu da sa ni le la ju ba de ngu ara sa ko rikba marik ban de yobe na ni ban du chi le de chung sa marik ban de yobe na ni ban du chi le de chung sa pe na rimbu yobe tongu shi no se dimbe zhan si do ta de tambu de ba ni ba le shi ba chi ba ku nga ju tu ban de timba chi tinde shi ara ti si re si ora ya marik ban de ke be nan du chi de ke de se wa rimbu yobe tongu shi de ke be na de ke pe ma me ju ba shi no sa de ke be na de ke shi ti si do de ka si ba na marik ban de ke be na ni ban du chi le de ke re se pe na ma me ju ba shi no sa de ka si ba na che nga be ta tambu de ni ba le sa ba chi shi ba nga ban jung gong ta re se ba chi de ten ne ka ta che chi de jung gong ta che o te la ten ne te chung wa de shi ge ra ta da tra ni che ten ne tak wa da ten ne tak wa da ten ne ke ba ni ji ra ge ngo ma du ba ten ba ye se o ten ne ka se de ke be na de ke be ma me ye be we shi no sta ta da chi la te ne chi de tu gu re se de she do be do de be na de jo per jang bu ye be tong shi se de ke be na de ke per ma me ye be we shi no ya o de so
So verse number 48 and 49 continues to basically point out that the Madhyamika position is something that does not actually contradict accepted worldly convention. And so 48, it says, when there is this that arises. So Madhyamikas are basically saying that, we accept this notion when there is this, when there is this that arises, just as when there is long, there is short. When it is produced, that arises, just as when a lamp is produced, light arises. So the worldly convention, but which basically says that, when this arises, when this sense of self or self-grasping arises, then that gives rise to kind of compositional actions, right? Kind of self-grasping in turn gives rise to dependent on self-grasping volitional actions arise, right? So this is something that we also maintain as well. And the example is dependent on there being something short, we also maintain the existence of long, right? So short and long, there is nothing, no entity that we can say is ultimately short or ultimately long, right? From the side of the object themselves. Depending on something that is shorter, a short kind of entity can become long or longer, right? And so therefore, nothing from the side of the object says it is ultimately short or ultimately long. And dependent on, the comparison between two objects, we conceptually impute the notion of long and notion of short, right? Similarly, when there is dependent on self-grasping, depend on that, compositional actions are imputed. So this is basically, Gela was saying that from a kind of grammatical point of view, this has a kind of, is a kind of locative case, right? When something exists, dependent on that, something else exists. The second is more in the kind of in the Sanskrit grammar and in the Tibetan grammar as well, a kind of case that depicts origination. Usually the fifth case, that depicts origin. Something comes from something, right? As opposed to something is dependent on something. And so it says like the light or the illumination arises from the burning of a lamp, right? So in that sense, when from the arising of this, that arises, right? So this kind of dependent origination has these two senses.
Oh, yeah, didn't. Oh, that did lesson, go lesson. Oh, she would be that.
No.
Oh, yeah, that is that. That don't do it. That the car should do say, na. Rinpo yo na tongu nyeshu, o dara peshan shedwa. Rinpo yo na tongu tati, rinpo si rangu ne dhube rinpo chi yo na, ko kati yo na rinpo rang dego ra. Ko rangshin ji rinpo dhube na, ko rinpo su te na, ko rinpo cha go ra. Tile rinpo chi kiyo na, ko tondu cha do ra. Chonchu sa de ya, rinpo sa chi na, ko chila te de ya sha go ra ma to chi, ko rang yu ji ngo ne, rinpo de chonchu chi na, chonchu de namba tamze do chonchu rang dego ra ma to. Ko shenda yana mena ko ke juan dwe mebe shi ko ra. Wati mara si yu rangwe ne, chimbo da chung chung da, yido wang da yido me wang tende, siya yu mara si wara. Tanya yi peke tsotsu, tende tsotsu me ra si so, di wang ke ne lo yu paa taa ne, samli taa ne paa taa shi den, jiden yi tanya yi wang ke shaa si ko ra, daa cha shaa wara tanda. Jiden yi ko kari mingri si taa ne, di wang jiden yi tanya yi wang ke shaa ba. Te keke wang meba cha Koran yi Koran wane chi tse yu na. Enda lomba kanga ke chikpara chingi kwa chikara, ming tozo chikpara chingi kwa chikara. Pumba saji ko rangwe ne pumba saji chukwe na. Changme pumba si lab kungi sura chawi wara. Waa kyo indi ka sura. Tandi ri danga za. Waa isu shiku. Rinpo yu na tongu di yu la si tati amu kem pera wa. Rinpo yu na tongu di yu re se. Dewa yu zang tungye se yungu ra. Tungye yu zang dewa se si yungu ra. Ko tungye che me na dewa se tanya loga si yunga si yunga ra. So chikli chik to di ko chik namsha chi sha gu yu ra. O di na si nga bu tsangma di ra. Tendi chi so zu chi che. Di me ra de ne samla tanda me ra chi chi pa tanya ta shi di. Daga rangi ke len gu ra. Jiden tanya di re ma to di len dewa chi ke lan yu ma ra. Jiden tanya di wang tsambu chi gu ra. Karili mingi tagi na di re ma re ta yin ma yin ta yu ma yin ta kanga di kon rogu ya ra. O di yin di. Rinpo yu na tongu yu re. Rinpo rangwe ne chube rinpo yu na namba tamze du rinpo yu gu ra. Rangwe ne chube tongu yu na namba tamze du gu ra. Rangwe ne chube yidu wang yidu me wang si o di di siya yu ma re si gu ra. Rangi ngo le ma yin si rangi ngo yu wang ge. Ni chi rinpo da tongba siya di chuya yu ma re. Rangi ngo yu. Rangi ngo yu si Koran yu ne. Nga rinpo yin, nga tongdu yin si. Tinde su yu ji rangwa si ni su chuya yu ma ra. Rangwa yu ngo me se ti ra. Tu chu re, tende re ma to ko rangwa si ni su chuya si yu ma re. Tende sokwa si che, ne tanya taksu si che. Di wangi namsha ke len gu ra. Rinpo yu na tongu ni. Rangi ngo le ma yin si ngo yu chuya yu ma re. Pena, 마음이 좋으나 왜 되는 거라. 마음이 매너 왜 좋아요 말아. 질도는 질린 되는 거라. 마음이 좋아 매베셔. 왜자 좋아 매베셔 거라. 어떻게 줄라나 되도.
So verse number 49, in this particular verse, Nagarjuna continues to basically explain his position that the Madhyamaka view is something that does not contradict the world or the world of conventionality. And here he says, when there is long, there is short. They do not inherently exist or exist substantially or exist from their own side, that is to say. And so basically, just as in the conventional world, we can maintain that something is long independence upon something that is shorter, right? The notion of long and short actually do not exist inherently, substantially from the side of the object themselves or objectively, that is to say. Because if that is the case, then something, as I mentioned earlier, something that is long will always remain long. Something that we say that is short will always remain short, right? So long and short is basically something there, and in comparison, we conceptually impute this particular notion of long and short. So it's a kind of a interdependent phenomenal experience or arising in the mind that based on something, we can say that something is longer or shorter, right? And so therefore, the notion of something long and something short do not inherently exist from their own side. So even though there's nothing in the object themselves that says, oh, this is long or this is short, right? Because of these causal factors, the world says this is shorter or this is longer, this is shorter, this is long, and therefore we have to accept the worldly convention. A Madhyamiga is somebody who actually maintains the worldly convention without actually resorting to a notion of inherent existence. They can perfectly maintain the worldly convention without resorting to inherent existence. That inherent existence means basically independent existence that is not dependent on causes conditions, right? But what the Madhyamika is saying that, like everything arises dependently, based on other causes and conditions. And due to those interdependent factors, there is a conventional imputation, a conventional imputation or agreement, a conventional agreement. And then Madhyamaka say that, we maintain that. We also maintain such a conventionality, but that conventional language or concept is based on many causes and conditions. And so therefore we can maintain such causality without resorting to kind of an inherently existing causality.
Oh yeah. Tandi gasere solo ngabchu ta ngabchu ngachi ni de da. Oh tigi ti tanda de shek do. Ngabchu ta ngabchu ngachi ti tanda shek do. Te kar shek ne. Yeme ko sa yeme ki tan ta de tan to na se ko ta tanda. Yeme ta de tan de to so na ni ko le tu gres ti shek do. Tani da tre u ti to ne ti ko bol de ne ti tu gres. Ko le tu gres ti shek do. Tetar kyunde ke thong shin se no tetar kyulen drebu ke wa cheme thong shin se ora tetar kyunde ke thong shin se kyulen drebu ke wa cheme thong shin se ti cheba maro yu cheme kyunde tente keling ora kitil ten drebu ti du jon so kanga keling ora sa ko cheba ndu ma resti nenden je she ora tetar tene kyunde tanyi be cheme ke wa thong shin se 타니베 쳔메 통하다가 고침바시고라 똑베 타니게 왕게 샤바 타니 짬도 여바 똑베 딱섬 셔야지 뒤로와 대점을 샤고를 해야 된다는마도 똑베 딱세 정말 용그리 해야 된다 말아봐 똑베 딱점스 대점을 샤고를 해야 타니 가린세 근데 귤렌 제부께와 타니베 쳔메 통신에서 대다리 균제 게 통신에서 되라 직된되니 직된되나 지신도세더라 지대되는 지신도세 동시에 사벨렌 요구께와 따르세거라 지신도세 사벨렌 요구께와 지다와 대신도세거라 대신도 내 지대 되나 귤레네 가서 균대디야 똑베 트벌레 좀 켈랑 그래서 똑베 트벌스 똑베 바 타니다 바 대삼리야 여바 켈랑 그래서거라 똑베 트벌레 똑베 가르 트벌네 데데레서 지게 타니 시야셔라 어찌나시 개랑고 해서라. 전에 딱 봤습니다. 줘봐. 디마르 고랑근에 찌따에 지워라시 랑근에서 디메르스 거라. 지신도这类情况开朗白是，这什么现在我们什么都做手了，那就这了什么都做刚刚的，都被这边来的那情况的开朗过来，都被打什么都开朗过来也是过来，都被打不什么的，都被忘给下过下样呢，他年纪忘给下过，这样几天的他年纪忘给人家送不到，现在给都搞说，东北你写的这样几天的他年纪忘给人家都当把你买东西。 다가 차샤오르 대삼지 침바셔오르 시도 침바셔라 또 랑지 참마랑나 참마송아 좀 침바 대삼지 리버셔오르 다ton다 산도시 자가 나 주가 되지 다들 산도시 근데도 알아서 这类中啊开朗白是军队的时候叫他你 사벨에 누구 깨와 다르스가 깨왔다고 깨와 신도스 지된데나 준데를 소바테서 간가 똑베 트발에 중아 똑베 딱 봤삼데 켈랑고래 해서라 남샤 가르치네 켈랑고 지된데나 지신도 트레레 중아 켈랑데 똑베 트바 똑베 왕게 샤고 당연히 왕게 샤고데 대삼le 켈랑고래 해서 시바라 유랑문에 두베케세 말아 매번이도 캐밀레스 어딘데 또왜 떠봐서도 당연히 되게 와라. 근데 제다와 말해서 음악바디 제다와 말해서 야 매번이도 캐밀레스 매번 마와 말해서 매번 마와 이나니 주께 wallen데부 대원 중에 주미게 wallen데부 동네 중에 사벨레 누구께 와서 버텨서 켈링 말아 남바 상제버가 개치슈는 음악바가 땡진데 버려 중앙에서 개치슈세게 와라. 근데 그 찔레 땡지 찔레네 요아시레 마도 때문에 그저 라와진의 주탄에 지고 말아 남샤 어딘데 그래서 这类情况开朗呗都别这吧是吧他年纪忘给都别小别忘给开朗他年纪忘给小把的开朗过来是没把你都开没来说这说的等当把没让我都知道没让我的没那样没把的开朗给我嘛的是等你打过什么都有噻 rồi tên chỉ để bảo chúng anh ấy sẽ thế ta nằm bao nhiêu năm nữa tên để ra tao hàng miền Bắc sang mong gọi để chỉ để chế bảo là số bao nhiêu đã khai ra nè thế tên chỉ để bảo chúng cứ ta kia là thùng máy bị cứ ta kia là tên để bảo thì kia cái đồ sẽ thì cái bài chỉ cứ có ra sao bây nhiều cái kia thì chỉ làm được có ra rồi nếu mà chỉ tên kia cái vào mà đó thì máy cái hiện tại cái sang rồi thì coi thì mua cái sẽ 원주 전에 영화 말아. 저 땡진 레벨 중한테 배 개천 부시게 오라. 무슨 말이야 되지 않나. 그래서 매번 이도 매번 뭐 많이 있어야 된다.
Sure. So then we go to verse number 50. 50 and 51 basically explains that through understanding or realizing the view that is free from the extremes, free from the two extremes, that is extreme of eternalism and nihilism, that one gains liberation or state of cessation. So the one kind of extreme that one can fall into is, and other lower philosophical schools and non-Buddhist schools actually point to the Madhyamagas that you have fallen into the extreme of nihilism. When you say that things do not inherently exist, you're basically, when there is no inherently existing causality, you're basically, it amounts to basically saying that there is therefore no cause, no effect, therefore you are actually destroying causality altogether. So this is kind of refuting such a view, a continuation of that, where it says that, Nagarjuna says here, just as in the world, right? Just as in this particular world, in the world, just as in the world of conventionally accepted convention, accepted linguistic and conceptual convention, we say that, you know, we see that when there is cause, there is effect, and so we see or perceive here basically means perceiving as, or seeing to the conventional valid cognition or conventional mind. And so the kind of to a conventional valid cognition of pramana, there is the appearance that when something is there, something arises, right? And so this particular appearance itself to the conventional mind is what is meant by imputation. Imputation is not like really something active, or volitional or intentional. So when something exists, something arises, and then the conventional valid cognition, pramana, to that conventional valid mind, it appears like that. To a conventional mind that is kind of accepted in the world. And that is the appearance to the conventional mind itself is what is meant by conventional imputation, right? So causality exists in that sense as a kind of a conceptual proliferation based on something that is happening on the basis of designation. There's a conceptual proliferation, a conceptual appearance, a conceptual designation. And that is the conceptual designation itself is the conceptual mind, right? So phenomena, causality exists in such a conventional manner. Therefore, phenomena is conventionally designated, conventionally imputed in that sense. But it doesn't mean that, we can designate or impute anything whatsoever. This is not the meaning, right? When there is a valid basis of designation, a conventional valid cognition arises. And so in that sense, Madhyamikas can still maintain that causality is existent. So therefore, but the Madhyamikas are saying that we should be satisfied with that. This just kind of simple conventional acceptance, right? Things are something happening on the basis of designation, something arises, gives rise to something, and then the conventional mind to the conceptual mind, something appears, or it appears like a kind of causal mechanism. And so, so it's conceptually designated in that sense. So Madhyamika is saying that we should be satisfied with that. Simba, we should be satisfied that the kind of acceptance of causality by our conventional mind, which is also not contradicted by other conventional mind. We should be satisfied with such a causal mechanism. That if we try to actually think that, oh, a causal mechanism is not just conceptually designated or imputed, that it must inherently exist, it must objectively exist, it should exist from the side of the object, and we try to look in the object to find for it, we will not find it. So therefore, conventionality, or causal mechanism or causality or cause and effect, therefore has no independent existence. It has no inherent existence, but it exists as a kind of a dependently arising phenomena, dependent on many causal conditions in the basis of designation, but also our own conceptual imputation as part of that kind of interdependent arising.
Oh yeah. This one.
No,
Oh yeah. Oh, Tandiri Dakar. Oh, Tandati. Kocha and Dira Casa, Meba Mama, he said to Sara. Yeva Mama, he said to Shagora water, and Nimi. No, yes, the combalet in the Tudor Shagora. And Goba said, Goba said, Kocha, Kocha, Yeva Tawacha, my Insigora. Kocha Umaba, so say. Don't by Yeva Tawacha, my Insigora. Kadesana. Julian Drebu, don't about two, but Gogi or this and Goba. Julian Drebu, yeah, don't about two messages, Rangan at Jordan Gogi or this. So go don't about two, but the Kaudopa. Yopama de Remadua, don't about Yopama de Remadua. Goba, and then Minjute, don't about don't about two, but Gogi is Gora. Goba. Trailer Majua Yanda Chishi, Nijurvase. Trailer Majua so talk about the Gora. Don't about two Goba in Jesse. Talk be Trevale Majua. Talk be one Gishaba Maimba. Yanda you run when a truba, Yanda Watuba, or Tindesi Kelling or Mares Gora. Talk be Trevale Majua, Yanda Watuba, and Chishin to Juba Ke Nena. Kelena Yubeta Wachendura. Goba. Trailer Majua Yanda Chishin Nijurba se. Yanda Chishin Nijurba. Kelen Yuba Nimin Jurse. Tokbe Wangi Shagba Maimba Yukuran when a truba de Kelen Gioma Resora. Tena Nimi temperature, this on the Oma Bade. Le Jundela Soba, this is Chawachin Liver de Kelen, Cheba Mawa Mares, Meba Mawa Mares. Oh, Tene. Tokbe Tanya Jiwanga Shagwa Samla, Yuba de Kelen Yutuza, and a Karsura. Tokbe Wangi Shagba Mato, you rang when it to a Kelen better, Yuba Mawate Mares, don't about Yuba Mawate Mares. This on that Tanya that Java, La Temperes. Rangwin and Azuton Nashi, you carry in a temper, you do one mewa, Tanga, Shense. Rawa to Truba Namjiton de Nashin killing your mother, Titomba Congiora. Charging gets all the mailers there, mother, Dagachin gets it, tended so to Tope Wanka Shawa some charges with some to Toyora. Dear killing good, this on the tiny Lamadin body. Chebetala Malo, nothing as a ton Nashingi, Tatala Malo, Chetala Malo, and Taxi tiny that Treve, who may lamb the top of a tene. And then control Nadia Trado Manzilla Sobachun should do this. It drew at it, Tanya that Trevor Lam Combalade, draw to Grace, the killing Yusigara. Oh, then Nila Mete do this once. Then I name it them but 12 Saturday. Do you go by that? What is?
so then verse 51 is just continuation of this particular line of thinking, where he says, Gokpa refuted. And so refuted here means the ultimate causality is refuted. And so Madhyamikas, not only actually we avoid the pitfall of falling into the extreme of eternalism, nihilism, but we also are able to avoid falling into the pitfall of eternalism. So therefore, he's saying like ultimate causality is also refuted because without okay, maybe I'm going to read this here. It's a good translation. Ultimate causality is refuted. It would be absolutist to accept that it has not arisen from conceptual fabrication, and that it is truly real, just as it is. Its ultimate reality is not accepted, thus not relying on the two extremes one is liberated. So therefore, a kind of ultimate causality is a causality that is not dependent on conceptual fabrication, means basically conceptual designation. On the basis of designation, something happening on the basis of designation, and then a conceptual appearance appears to the conceptual mind, which is basically a way of saying conceptually fabricating or conceptual designating or conceptual imputing, right? So without like and so therefore without depending on such conceptual designation, we do not accept a kind of a causal mechanism or causality that is not dependent on such conceptual designation or conventional designation, right? So we don't also fall into the extreme of eternalism and kind of a position of proceeding an inherently existing causality. Therefore, those who rely on such a position free from the two extremes achieve liberation.
그래서
Now,
뭐야? 단들이 다 저는 아주 많이 당가 숨들어. 아주 많이 당가 숨드셔 그래 당어도. 네. 다른데 뭐 그래서 아주 많이 좀 다들 실제로 빼셔 봐서도 그 땅만 들으면 저 셰르와 타니 숨을로한테 지셰르와 어디 실제로 빼고는 셰르도 이게 아주 많이다. 말씀이더라. 빼고네. 땅만 듣는데 임바데 실제로 빼고는 셰르도 저는 때간데 빼간데 잡아뒀으나 다른 내내 통해 수제라. 다른 분의 통계의 수대 다른 분의 통하나시 타니버도 여버되게 진짜 통말을 세워진 통구를 해서 거라. 다른 내내 통해서 녀와 남제 세워 통해서 먼저 그냥 니마다 나와도 다른 분들도 고고 진짜 야부 싶다. 이걸 해도 된대요 말아. 원해도 통구요 말아. 다이네 나와 통사가 저라. 티나신 거 강강 알아서 대고난이 따지고 올려온 거라. 빼대로 다른 내내 통해서 녀와 남지 세월 통세 다른 부족을 통하되 세부 통 말해서 이나고 다니부터 뜰에 나가지 세부 전 통그래 해서 거라 빼셔라. 미주게데 추이나서 다른 부도 따와다 다니분에 따와도 게데 직부 통그이나서 거라. 근데 다른 분의 제만라부터 사kam부터 니마 잡을 게 없으나 미주 통그라 추나시지 봐 주로시 통그라 르다다 도저까지 충원에 레삼기도 그 주도 게르시는 거란데 제 주도 거지 근데 미규세도 그 춘다버리 통거라 다른 분의 주된로는 게요 말이 제마마도 통해게요 말아 사kam부마도 통해 미주게데 추이나 대단히와 남제 찜에 통데 통곡으로 와서 가라 다들 정분에 통하다 다니분에 통하더라고 말도 말아서 나와 통하다 지지 강가 통하더라고 말아 다알이야 어디더라 그냥 아주 살이야 대네 따와대 아주 저는 전부를 리리리에서는 남산 소화게 시작하면도 그거는 말레블레 시와라 그한테는 레블레 시간도 되어라 다 건조 이내 맞다데 리리리리 야부시 통고여라 아주 나와를 통하나시지 리리리리 시티 템퍼리처 이내다데 아주 대대대네 건데네 맞다데 레블레 봐도 리리 통로지 마라 실도는 야 남관도는 통으로 맞듯이 자꾸 다 니원에 단계들 원에 단계 니 통주 찍어 용해요 말아 지달에 비디소 토알레서 오래되라 다른 내내 통해서 녀와 남제 nyewa namje sawar tong. Tipedele mikyu gede chuyena nyewa namje jimme tongse. Mikyu de ta rinpune mikyu tongade pajo de ta nyebune tangede mikyu tongu mara jima ne sakambu tongira mato che. Tipe resi gora. Ote chilo na tambu pete.
So then verse number 52 and 53 explains the difference between those who see reality as it is and those who don't see it through using some examples. So therefore, I'm going to read it here. Is a form that is viewed from afar is seen clearly by those nearby. If a mirage were actually water, why would those nearby not see it? So therefore, it's point to basically the difference between appearance and reality, right? And so it's the kind of this is the illustration or example here. Like when views, if we view something from a distance, we see a particular form, right? If that particular form is kind of really as it is, as seen from the far, then those who are nearby should actually see it even more clearly, right? So the example here is like mirage. When a dry desert with sands, it's kind of and there's a sunlight, like extreme heat of the sunlight, and on a dry desert. From a distance, it appears as if there is water, right? So that is what is meant by mirage. And so animals actually get confused, and from a distance, it seems like the kind of flickering mirage is actually like a running river or running water or something like that. And so they run toward it. But when they come close to it, there is no river, right? So therefore, if the mirage is truly as it is, like as seen from afar, then those who come close to it, why don't they see it? And so the kind of rhetorical question, of course, we don't see it, right? Because there is no mirage to begin with.
오야. 오다디 오마 솔테라 중나 숨데라. 지데르와 남게네세. 지덴데네 양다 통서라. 어디 가서 그래서나 지데는 가라도 소소게 오다고 와. 네네 뭐 가를 때비나 테네로 모네데 통하라. 통통 말해서 대타른 부레서 거라. 정말 시래. 소소파 남도 가리 kum시 가리네 티나시제 러지 따지 통그라마도 고치마치 통마도 소소교 대고난이라 또버 르와 남비스거라. 내정문에 봐 따다데 다른 분에 때문에 시래서거라. 대 가리 통고서는 참아 유랑원에 여봐. 자르지네 랑원에 여봐. 년르지네 랑원에 여봐. 이동원르지네 랑원에 여봐. 이동명 랑원에 여봐. 근데 통되게래서라. 대왕게 작당다 셈고 남주 지마치 신지 요마라 투도 요라 강가 어제인데 지다 타르와 남지네세 타르와 소소교가 가지고 뭐 내당 바따당 되시거라 근내 중원에 될바 따야 타니브래요 말았다 로헨젤 가르통나티 자치우도 메다메다 통해 연구라 진세르다 메다 통해 녀바 이다 단돌 할라서 메다 통해 요라 소소소게 류기 차다다 레단 저다 된저와게 집어내시 통해 요 말에 펜던지에다 차단계에 강가 집어 요 말아 소소 따당게 온게 메다메다 차요라 어때인데 지대로와 남제는 지대는 양다 통 소소 통하는 신문에 인삼게 와라 나랑 통화된 상고야 심 추된 게 지나 연바차되는 코코란데 인삼기르마도 나 추대 요 삼로 지금 알아 나란데 때문에 인삼기라 등한서 참아 얘도 매워 당아 셰 답쇼 신쇼를 써봐 강가 따단들 로란게 거라 따단지요 어디내시다 그래서 거라 시대로 남제는 지대는 양다 통 소소 통하나시 덴바 인삼 거래 양다바 인삼 소소 간데 통거스 유랑원에 요바 통거래 소소 똑배 왕게 파샤바데 삼기 요 말에 또 삼을 땅나데 하고에 손도 지워래 소소 똑배 왕게 샤바 다르다 니엔데 지메나 그 가보 용게 쉬지 야고지나야 지금마도 남산다 아니 현다 차도로 그 소소 똑배 왕게 차기 얼마도 그 유랑원에 있는 자자한테 니니라 대거라 이동화 대거라 이동화 대거라 대면도 소소 삼을 땅저 개발지 루도 지체죠 어디 손자 소소 따당 가리나 띵원에 인삼 매대 덴바 인삼 그러마도 나 투대 요삼로시가 말해 어디에도 지대 르와 남게는 지대는 양다 통 소소가 통주 난시 양다가 인삼 오늘 덴바 인삼 거래 덴바 루바 인삼 거래 소소 가리 통거라서는 자당이다 나다 켜다 시대 양이다 개치중다 시부지 이거 통거라 어디 나시 덴바 인삼 거래 지대 르와 남게는 지대는 양다 통세 대단 예 남게 메통 세메 미규시 타니고 제 세제내 중원에 삼루탄에 소소 통주 나시 마샤바시 삼루탄데 어테가 담부텐데 삼게 때레메도 따테레도 아니 셴에 마모요라 소소 통주데 덴바샤는 테라니 텔레 데바케 메삼나니 야도에게 오마라 시제 사바신에게 오마레 다가 코카리네 히데르삼 띵가라즈 티켄 셰시테도 코라 가리나 인데요 레삼 그르마도 나랑치 제는 세주지 제정에 신네 하고야 원에도 삼선 삼로 지마라 코라 가리나 인데요 레삼 지지 셰요르사 딘데게 오마라 원에도 가르레삼 소소 통하나 시르베 마르베 딱세 치고 있어라 티제는 녀로 제는 원에 내주도 하고 온도라 티직된 시다는 거 보간가 다르와 담보 법도 갈다는 소소 따다나시 대마라 다짜지시 제주 아니 녀로 쳐서는 원에 내주 통통이라 어디 숨도 시다르와 남게는 직된되는 양다송 대다 녀와 남게는 다 내룰래 다 녀로 쳐서 내줄래 다 제제 대다 뒤는 원에 가르에서 다제 징게디 시고라 대다 녀와 남게네 매동 재미 미주시세 내고 담부나 신데 소소 통하데 템바레 삼텐데 통고 말해서 거라 그 당부 미주벨 차서다 다른 문에다도 이 통고요래 유치된로는 매바 하고 요라 어찌나 시제 타니 보체네 땅에다 다른 분 남주 로행기 따다니 된다고 말해서 거라 어딘데 맨도 지대로와 남제는 지대되는 양다 통 대다 nye 남제 메통세 와 세메 미주신에서 어때다 녀와 남제는 근데 통고 말해서라 라신지로 양다 버주가 그 통고 말해서 다 녀와 대 파파다 강사도 저도 대코난을 제바신게 파괴 강사도 저 식수들이야데 개바다 때문에다 이동하면서 봐 나저 통주 나신 말해서거라 이 손자 대답을 타니다 저한테 통수는 아니 정도래서 그래서 타니와도 파괴님 샷도 파괴 강사도 샤도 이거래 미주기는 집에도 당말한도 사서 우리 전주만 소리서 지대로 남게된 지대되는 양다 통 제대로 남게 내가 메통 세미 개보다 배밀라 소바 이동하다 매원라 소바 세마시거라 세마시 유랑운이 두베tin들라시거라 세미 미규신세 그 미규 다른 분의 땅에다 타니분의 땅에 기든 담아서 타니분의 땅에 되게 미규 통고 말아 다른 분의 통에 되게 통고도 주제 소속에 롤랭게 가르 통나 때문에 인삼되게 말아 어디지 람나 돼서
So, verse number 53. Still, we are on the same subject, and here we just discussed the example, the difference between those who see reality as it is and those who don't see reality as it is. In this particular verse, I'm going to read it first. As in the case of a mirage, those far away here, basically far away from seeing reality as it is. So far away means like, those who are like those who have a long way to go before they see reality as it is. That is basically ordinary beings. And those who are nearby in the end basically means those who are closer to seeing the truth, seeing emptiness, seeing reality as it is, basically the Aryas and so forth. So the difference is made between these two being individuals, those who are far away from seeing the truth and those who are closer to seeing the truth, the Arya beings. So therefore it says, just as in the case of a mirage, those far away who view the world see it to be real, just as it is. So basically, for those who are far away from seeing the reality, seeing the truth of emptiness, they see the world as truly existing. That is the kind of point here. They see friends, enemies as intrinsically existent enemies, truly existent enemies, enemies that are actually existing from the side of the object without our mental conceptual designation. They see things as good or bad in and of themselves, right? Like has a kind of a substantial reality to these notions of good and bad. Kind of what we call a self-characteristic, swalakshana, right? Having this all their own intrinsic existence. When we say something is good, there is something good on the side of the object. And so based on that, those who are far away from the truth then generate negative emotions such as desire, such as anger, and because of that, they engage in negative karmic actions and so forth. And that's how they suffer, resulting with associated resulting suffering, right? So it is basically like someone who's very mentally insane or mentally confused. They begin to see things and hear things, and to them it's really truly happening. Phenomenologically, from the point of view of personal experience, it's sounds are real, forms are real, right? Nobody can convince that person otherwise, right? But then, even though the phenomenological confusion is real, there is no kind of actual uh, uh, basis of designation, right? There is no truth. So that is what is meant here. They see those who are far away from the truth see things as if they intrinsically exist, as if they truly exist. But on the other hand, for those who are closer to reality, closer to seeing truth or reality as it is, that is closer to seeing the reality of emptiness, for them, they do not see things as intrinsically existent due to their being and due to there being an absence of sign, basically sign of intrinsic existence. So, sign, signlessness, sign here, sign could be many sign, conceptual signs, but here, sign here means conceptual sign, a sign that actually clings to intrinsic existence, right? And they see, therefore, see phenomena as signless in the sense that there is no conceptual grasping to intrinsic existence. And so therefore, just like mirage, right? Things appear to be intrinsically existent, but when you analyze, then there is no mirage. When you analyze, there is no intrinsic existence. So therefore, there is like through an analogy, a difference between those who are far away from seeing reality and those who see it. That is kind of discussed here.
Oh yeah. Trong中国中国是点吧？ 풍부랑 신지 주바가 와시기도 하지 풍부랑 신지 주바가도 어디 간데르스나 지들 미주 춘자와 추미 돈도 많이 봐서도 미주도 다른 분에 떠나 춘자버려 지워데 돈다 딱저잖아 돈대시 딱이네 추려야 돼요 말와 돈다 추려야 돼요 말에 지들 미주 춘자와 추미 돈도 멤버다 추마레스 돈도 딱저지게나 이거 하고도 돈다냐 추려야 돼요 말에서 다른 분에 소소 동줄 때 주마도 시가라 대신 풍부 따라와 대신 풍부 소수 풍부 세워라 풍부 속부 라소바티 풍부가부터 쓰세요 또 소풍이 잘되라 대신 풍부 따라와 대다 다음이 좀더 민세 미주디 춘다와 돈아야 추레되면 도와서 따셔잖아 대신도 소수 풍부 대해서라 안에 정신지 주바 그 당니 임바다부지 통거래돼 정신지 주베 당니 말해서 양다과 주바 말해서 정신지 주베 당니도 통하되 양다과 주바 말해서 때 다세대 간살 거지요 말아 최탐제 다음에서도 우마바 남지 최탐제 다음에서도 와 어디 다시도 당니 쓰거라 최탐제 랑외 당니도 말아 분배 당니데 랑외 당니도 말아 분바 랑외 다요 말아 당니데 랑게 뭐요 말아 랑외 랑게 뭐요 말아 랑게 랑신요 말아 랑게 당니요 말아 어디를 거해라 최탐제 다음에 봐셔야 돼 내가 저기 지나 연구 바꿔서 로맨 다와다 시계변 잡아 임베나 결라 따지 차원에 관심 없고 남지셔라 라말레베 오랑 신데세 다다세 텔레스코르치다 샹라 라말레베스도 타니베 셰바 공게 샤바 마이바 유코랑원에서 여다바 통하듯이거라 결라다 관심 없고 남지셔 셴 타니 딱발라서 텐데 소네 파 딱발라 라말레바 대왕게 샤바 마이바 코랑 유코랑원에서 여삼자 여나 니 라와도 여바스 거르다 til daas jawane ka shingo nam ji shan la ra ma le be ngo ra shi de me ba ne da me ba si to de chö da kan sa ji nam ba ni shi kan sa da me shi to o de chö tam je da me se de lo ko ra ta da o ma te je lu chen zan de da se de rang ge dang ni ji ma du ba rang ge ngo ma du ba rang ge rang shin ma du ba rang ge rang shin ji ma du ba rang ge dang ni ma rang ge ngo ma du ba o de ji ba si ra o de 그래서 시다리 미주 춘다와 춤에 돈도 많이 봐서 대신 풍부 따라와 네 저다 다미 돈도 매 풍부 따라랑 당이도 주반다와 통그래대 대랑의 당이도 주베 다 말해서 돈도 야고 랑원에 주베 당이도 주요 말해서 그라 미주 춘다와 춤이 봐 대신도 배차라 네 풍부대야 아니 랑신지 주베 당이 말해서 그래 나이대로 신기 주베 당니도 나야 제 당니도 주베요 말해서 어디지라나 공부도 안 미셔도 한다 나랑도 주베도 매베로와 엔티나네 다 다기 와서 나에서 개체셔도 공부된 것도 소보다 좀 배워라 어디시도 야
So, verse number 54 is now refutation of self of aggregate. Earlier in the earlier verses, there were discussions on selflessness of person. Now this is discussion on selflessness of phenomena, and among the selfless phenomena, the most important is aggregates, right? In terms of like generating attachment and aversion and associated like karmic actions. First is basically I, notion of a truly existing I, and then second is notion of truly intrinsically existing mind. And of those, one's own psychophysical aggregates are most prominent in terms of giving rise to craving and aversion and associated negative emotions and actions and so forth. Although there are a lot of phenomena out there in the world. So therefore, this is the self of aggregate is something that does not truly exist. So self here does not mean personal self. when the word self is used, Atma is used in the kind of philosophical context, it doesn't necessarily refer to personal self. Self basically means own being or self nature, or something that intrinsically exists, right? True existence, uh, own being, right? A kind of a nature that is independent of our own conceptual designation, something that it means it exists from the side of the object. There is inherent existence. That is what is meant by self here. So we should not confuse that. So therefore, it is explained here with an example. A mirage seems to be water from a distance, right? But it is not water. No, is it real? No, is it real means no, is it intrinsically real from the in that sense. Likewise, the aggregates seem to be real, seem to be a self, means a self means intrinsically existing entity. For those who are far from seeing reality as it is, but they are not a self. They are not a self means they do not have self own being or self nature or intrinsic existence, right? No are they even real. No are they even real means they are not inherently non-existent. So therefore, this is basically uh, a kind of a discussion on the selflessness of the psychophysical aggregates, feeling, physical body, and so forth.
This are,
Oh.
yeah. And they maybe to Mama did that, and to Mama, don't to do this. Make you learn in the chushes, make you lia. The churi some time when it is true yoda, Tina Nerida to the Mama Chuisara, and Kakomnete Chutung with some donny. Me a true yoda in the true women. The chushes somebody, some ne. Somebody is, and then a song let the children something draw in a segura. Can draw a okay, they shoot the meadows, oh, they show you a tagging time, maybe shashy. In the Zinico Norva, Tambune Maver, oh, the Guinea Maver, man, nor some. In the some glory, Tima somebody, oh, the Guin shoot you even time, maybe shasha, some, nor a race over. Make you learn in ditches, make you law someday, then it should be some near. Tell Chimber, touch Patarum. Then do the Toya Yomara Sakambumata. Oh, that I should me do something in order. Oh, the tagging it to the Norra, Tambune Chumever to awesome. The Hako Yara. Meba, she somebody Nilimba days, what make you learn in this shit. Somebody someday, then a song a lay. Get it to the meadow, somebody new Limbanis. Can you do? Oh, the Mapchunganga. Yeah, can you do?
Yes. So then we go to verse number 55. Seeing a mirage, one might think that is water, and then we go up to it, right? This especially happens to wild animals in the desert. They are very thirsty, partially because of the thirst. The kind of the urge to impute is very strong, and then secondly because of the sun's light hitting the desert kind of sands in a particular way. There's a kind of a appearance of a mirage, and then they go towards it, right, thinking that there's actual water there, and it also happens to human beings as well, but mostly to wild animals. And so once you get there and say, oh, and then you begin to think that, oh, there was water earlier, but now when I come closer, there is no water, right? Like coming closer to seeing reality as it is. If you think like that, if you entered in such a thinking, oh, there was water, but now as I come closer to it, there is no water, that is kind of stupid thinking. This is basically, what is being mentioned here. we have to understand that there was no water. There was no water to begin with. That is the counterpoint that is being kind of the instruction that has been given here, as we must understand that there was no water to begin with. It was a mirage. There is no true existence to begin with. So yeah, if one still grasped at the water, thinking the water isn't here, it'd be quite foolish. Just the translation. Long.
Oh yeah. Oh, that don't do it. ngab chung nga da nga du de wa ngab chung nga da nga du de de she do din na ji na ngab chung nga da nga du de ge ye me do ta wa pa ne ye me do ta ma ba na quality ku ma re sa ra wa che da lo na ni quality yo ma ra ta ye de de yu kong gu yo ra ye me do ta wa ma ba na ne ta ba to to ma re sa ti she do ta dang bu de de she ta shol ba ni ba de ra Tishin mi ju tabu yin jikdan yue xe me ba xe. Zimba tene mongba de mongba yu na me chwe lo xe te tere. Pe tangman do sa ra. Pe te shin do so ra. Ane nga su tong de rang xin ji yo ba. Tong la rang xin ji me ge ngo bu do su sangma so ra. Nang la rang xin be be. Ngo bu de su sangma so ra. Ane tishin mi ju tabu yin jikdan xe. Nang la rang xin be be ro. Mi ju tabu 미큐 때 나야 그 나오나 시요 말어 나라 저 거부터 간가 정신이 여부 통구이 어디 때나 시요 말어 저 나라 정신 매배 미큐 때 비춰도 상황하시게 와라 대신 미큐 때 부에 지게 기 풍부라서 반대로 상황하시게 와라 얘네 기 풍부 정신이 여서는 따다 정도라 나 정신이 여바디 치 매배 샤샤섬네 뭐버려서 되어 말어 심바테네 몽바테스 테 몽바레 테 코나니 장라 몽바 요나니 퀄리티 또 마레스 티시미 주타부 엔지데 요샤 메바셰 미 심바테네 몽바데 몽바 요나 메줄로 다든다 타니다 제베 유디 마도나니 조토 마로 제발롱네 동반이 예술에 중들어 소바다 저와체네 바데 동신하니 르마도 시지로 마레 제달롱도 요라 ni kanga tsimi shigira, gewada migyo kanga tsimi shigira. Dina shi, jida yosha meba shi, mba ten mba ti. Rangshin ki yosha zimba ne diyo mara, mayas ne cheta londora. Sa taksha ki tangi dan trewe udi toku yora tunda. Cheta lona diyo mara, tata tanda nga zi jitan tongya di na shi, chi tongti yin samde ne diyo mara. Tongzi na shi yin samne diyo mara. 토지 나시 말이 원래 위는 원래 매르다 매버를 삼는 되게 말와 당시에 타니다 저 의디 공부를 했다 랑원에 매 땡진 제벌 중에 수지 여 자와진 게지 여섬 때네 따고 좀도 여서 최탐제 때네 따고 땡제 this is 공부를 했어 디지털은 돼서
So verse number 40, 55 and 56 is basically explaining that liberation only happens when one is free from the two extremes, the extreme of clinging to inherent existence and the extreme of clinging to non-existence. That is eternalism and nihilism, right? So verse number 56 says, likewise, it is confused to apprehend this mirage-like world as either existent or totally non-existent, right? So mirage-like world here basically refers to, right now we are discussing the aggregates here. So the world here really refers to the psychophysical aggregates. The world is the world of psychophysical aggregates. So with regard to the psychophysical aggregates such as form, consciousness, feeling, and so forth. If we say that, things exist as if they appear to us, that is, they appear to us as if they intrinsically truly exist, That is eternalism, like nihilism, right? And therefore, if you that says so clinging to such a notion of intrinsic inherent existence lead us within conditioned existence because there is no selflessness, and everything that we do, even wholesome actions, are done with clinging or attachment to a notion of intrinsically existing stuff and phenomena. But on the other hand, due to the logic of emptiness, we understood it as if nothing exists whatsoever. Then we fall into nihilism. And if we are entertaining a nihilistic position, then there is the danger of not respecting causality, not observing karma, and so forth. Like thinking that, oh, the emptiness understanding gives me this license, right? A wrong understanding of emptiness, that is to say that, not to observe karmic causality. So that is, again, another pitfall. So therefore, in order for liberation to happen, for liberation to be attained, in order to attain liberation, we must be free from both these two extremes, that is the extreme of eternalism and nihilism. So that is the middle way. The middle way philosophy is the philosophy that is basically free from the two extremes in that sense. So therefore it says, likewise, it is confused to apprehend this mirage-like world as either truly existent or totally non-existent, if confused while we not obtained liberation.
我也他就是说，
Yeah. Time is up, so we're going to stop here for this session.
Tujiche, Ginrinpoche, thank you very much. And thank you, Dr. Bhuchung. Thank you for translating for us today. And please join us again next Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. We'll finish with some dedications.
May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path, and all spiritual friends who practice it, have long life. May I pacify completely all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. May the lives of the venerable spiritual mentors be stable, and their virtuous actions spread in the 10 directions. May the light of Lobsang's teachings dispelling the darkness of the beings in the 3 worlds always increase. Iram Gururana Mandalakam Niriyatayami. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. In the snowy mountain pure land, you're the source of good and happiness. Powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezi, may you stay until samsara ends.